And our mission is a stress-free, violence-free society. And our theory of change, the way that we achieve this, is if you think about any time that you've witnessed, experienced, or even participated in anything violent, usually it's because somebody is overwhelmed and stressed and not themselves. So if we can help people to manage their own individual stress, then we're less likely to see any incidences of violence. And so this is our theory, and this is why this workshop today is really about you and how can we help you to be your best self. So it's meant to be interactive. So you can unmute, you can respond by the chat, whatever is comfortable for you. We'll do a little bit of chatting, talking about stress and how it impacts us. And then we'll go right into experiencing the techniques. So we'll do a little bit of breath work. We'll talk a little bit about the science of the breath, and then we'll end with a guided meditation, and then an introduction to a program that we have that's specific for healthcare workers that's available to all of you free online as a thank you for all that you do. So that's what we'll do in the next. I'm aiming for about 45 minutes to an hour so that you are not kept late. Sounds good? Great. So we're talking about stress, and I know what causes me stress, but it's individual. So why don't you tell me, using the chat, or you can unmute and just shout out, what are some of the things that cause stress in our lives? Can be
workload.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, workload, a lot of work.
Workload.
Yeah.
I see family, children, work, uncertainty, unfinished business, deadlines, so many, and today is the 31st of March. Yes. Lists, expectations of ourselves, and our perception of others' expectations of us. Deadlines, I'm sensing a theme. I imagine there's a lot of deadlines today. Yeah, unemployment. Unemployment is layered because there's so many different levels to the stress that is caused by unemployment. Part of it is the basic necessities. Part of it is how our own identity is impacted by the perception of our own value. And part of it is the uncertainty of when you will find employment, right? The pandemic, also so many layers of this in the ways that it's impacting us. Fear, finances. Absolutely. So that's a lot. And it's all very real. And if we think about all of these things, some of them aren't going to change, right? There will be deadlines. There will always be a March 31st. There will be uncertainty, and there will be expectations. And whether or not that causes stress will depend on us. So I'm going to just reframe how we talk about stress for a moment. So let's think about your typical day. You wake up first thing in the morning. We may have a self-care routine. Usually we'll have breakfast. We'll go to work. You're working for 8 hours, maybe 9, maybe 12, right? Then you're coming home, you're making dinner, you're taking care of children. You're doing something, maybe watching a TV show, maybe reading a book, going to bed. Right? That's your day. Oh, and you probably have to get groceries as well. So let's say that's your typical day, and you've had 8 hours of sleep, you've had 3 good meals. It's a pretty normal day. Let's say you've tossed and turned all night. You've only had really about 3 hours of solid sleep. You didn't fall asleep until 6 o'clock, and you woke up at 6:30 because you got to be at work for 7. And you're rushing, so you haven't eaten, you haven't slept, and you still have to do the same things. You still have to go to work, you still have to do groceries, you still have to cook dinner, you still have to take care of the children, and you go to bed. Same exact day, but the only difference is how much you've slept and how much you've eaten. How do you experience those days? Is there a difference between the two? Which one is more stressful? Oh, I see lips moving, but I can't hear you.
Second one.
Second one.
Consider you have no sleep and you have maybe some food and then you're rushing to work and all that. So basically you don't have time.
Yeah. You don't have time and you also don't have energy. So what causes something to be stressful or increases how stressful something is how much energy we have to respond to it. Okay. So if your energy is high and a difficult day comes, you're able to respond to it because you're alert, because you're rested, because you're aware, because you're balanced. If a difficult day comes and your energy is really low, that difficulty just increases exponentially because you don't have the focus, you don't have the concentration to really respond well to whatever's coming your way. So reframing stress a little bit, not in terms of what are the external factors that are happening, but what is our internal energy level and ability to respond to those external factors. Let's just think about that and see how it resonates. Let's see, stress also causes relationship problems with others. Yes, you are reading my mind. So let's talk a little bit more about the energy. What are some of the things that bring us energy? Things that energize you, make you feel good. Food, going outside, work. That's a nice one. Volunteering, relationships, exercise, friends, family, music. Beautiful. My daughter talking to my clients. That means you're in the right place. Yeah. Watching TV. Absolutely. Being with my pet. These are all very important sources of energy. Taking a good bath. Absolutely. Sleep. So important. I'm going to break these down into 4 categories that are really easy to think about. The first and most obvious one is sleep. Having the right amount of sleep is very important in balancing our inner world of stillness and our outer world of activity. So if you sleep for 3 hours, how are you going to feel the next day? Pretty cranky. And if you are working late nights all week and then you finally get to sleep in on the weekend, are you feeling any better if you've slept for 12 hours? No, you're feeling lethargic. And so finding that balance of the right amount of sleep, not too much, too little, is when it becomes energizing. It's the same thing with food. If you skip a meal, how do you feel? That's okay. My family knows I get so hangry if I don't eat. They will just hear it in my tone, and my brother's going to come and he'll be like, "Here, Susan, why don't you have something to eat?" And I know that I'm a little bit off. So, and also if we eat too much, like after Thanksgiving or an Easter weekend meal, how are we feeling? Right. We're feeling equally lethargic because all of your energy is in your stomach digesting. So having the right quantity of food and the right type of food is really important for it to be energizing. If you take your hands and go like this is actually the right amount of food for you to eat. This much. This is the amount that will fill your stomach, about 3/4, and leave room for your digestive fluids. And it's perfect because everybody's hand is sized to their bodies. So it'll be the right amount for you depending on how big your hands are. And also eating fresh, healthy foods will bring you energy more so than eating foods that are old or foods that are frozen or foods that are heavy and difficult to digest. The third source of energy is where most of you spoke about, and it's the things like being at work, talking to your clients, volunteering, being with your family, music, being with friends, taking a bath. All of these give us energy because they make you happy. Right? They give you a calm and peaceful state of mind. And our brain uses up more energy than any other organ in our body because it's constantly working, perceiving the world, analyzing the world, and trying to figure out and understand what we need to do next. When your brain is at peace, you're actually conserving energy. And so the things that we do that make us feel happy energize us because it reduces the amount of energy that our mind would normally spend if we were in a state of stress. And this is why simple techniques like meditation can bring us so much energy. And the fourth source of energy is our breath. How many of us have ever thought of our breath as a source of energy? No one? Nobody? And you still came? So if you think about, let's try to think about how breath is a source of energy. If you think about how long you can go without food, how long can we go without food? Estimate.
Maybe 2 days?
2 days?
1 day? For 24 hours?
A little bit longer. You can actually go almost a month without food if you're drinking water. And then if we look at how long we can go without sleep, go, no guess?
Maybe 1 night, 2 nights?
Yeah, I know my mom's an LPN in a long-term care facility, and I was like, she definitely goes a long time without sleep. Ideally, you don't want to go more than 3 days without sleep, and that's when it starts to impact you psychologically. Then if you think about how long we can go without our breath, how long can we go? Just a couple of minutes. Yeah. And how long can we go without a calm and peaceful state of mind? I see some puzzled looks. Some people go their entire life without knowing what it is to have a peaceful mind. And so of all of the 4 sources of energy, the one that we can exist the shortest amount of time without is our breath. It's our first act of life and it's our last act of life. And it is the most essential source of breath that we have, source of energy that we have. Our breath is connected very closely to our emotions. And this is also how it helps to manage stress. Do you ever notice how your breathing changes depending on how you're feeling? How does somebody breathe if they're really angry? Think about those cartoon characters. I can't believe that person did this to me. Oh my goodness, how did this happen? What was that person thinking, right? Our breathing becomes really short and really shallow. And what about when someone's really sad? The breathing pattern is really long exhalation. So we know that the breathing changes with our feelings. What we often don't recognize is that we can also change how we're feeling by changing our breathing. A group of scientists showed them images, and the images were designed to invoke emotion. So they wrote down the breathing patterns attached to those emotions. Then they brought people in and they assigned them a breathing pattern. And what they found is that when people used that breathing pattern, they started to feel that emotion. So with no other stimulus except for a shift in your breathing pattern, people would start to feel angry or sad just because of the way that they were breathing. And this is why when we're experiencing really strong emotions, what is one of the first things that people will tell us to do? They tell us to breathe. So we've talked a lot about breathing. Should we try some breathing? Okay. Who feels like, we'll take a quick poll here. Who would feel like an energizing breath? Got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 for energy, 5 for energy. Okay. The other option is calming. We'll do both, but we'll start with the energizing breath. If you have uncontrolled high blood pressure, or if you're pregnant, you'll want to be doing this very gently. I'll demonstrate it and then we'll do it together. So what we're doing here is your hands are in a loose fist at the side of your body. If you're in a chair that has arms, you might want to move forward. We're sitting with our back straight. Our palms are facing forward in a loose fist. When you breathe in, your arms go up and open. When you breathe out, you're just dropping the arms and bringing them down in a closed fist. And you bring your arms all the way down so your elbows gently tap against your rib cage. The inhalation is a normal inhalation, but the exhalation is forceful. So you're breathing out forcefully. And both the inhale and the exhale is only through the nose. So the mouth is closed and we're breathing in and out through the nose. Okay. So we'll try this together. I'll guide us through. We'll do 3 sets of 15. Okay. But no need to count. When you feel comfortable with the breath, you can either close your eyes or you can look down. Okay. So we'll take a normal breath in. And breathe out. And we'll begin breathing in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, 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 and relax. We'll just rest a moment. You can rest with your eyes closed or looking down. There's a lot of oxygen coming into your body. If you feel lightheaded at all, just take a little bit more gentle breaths with your exhale. It's totally normal. It's just lots of oxygen coming into your system. We'll do the second one. We'll take a normal breath in and breathe out. And we'll begin breathing in, out, in, out, in, 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 and relax. We'll do the last set. Hands in a loose fist at the side of our body. We'll take a normal breath in and breathe out. And breathe in, out, in, out, in, out, in, 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 And just rest a moment with your eyes closed or looking down. And just be aware of how your body feels and your mind. And when you're ready, slowly and gradually, you can open your eyes. Oh, was I the only one with my eyes closed? All right, so tell me, how is that? This breath is called power breath because it's energizing. How are you feeling now?
I definitely worked out my arms.
Definitely. It feels so good. Beautiful. Oh, youth mental health. More energy. Good.
Actually, this is the first time that I push my breath out this way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How is your mind feeling?
Mm-hmm. Something new. Good. I think it. Yeah.
It feels very relaxed.
Yeah. This is another beautiful thing about the breath. Oh, shucks. Sorry, I forgot that some of you were wearing masks. I would have given us a different breathing technique. I'm sorry. This is a very awkward one to do when you're wearing a mask. The next one you can do comfortably with a mask. I'm so sorry. Yeah. The beautiful thing about the breath is that most of stress comes from our mind, right? When we're thinking about something, thinking about what we have to do, thinking about what someone said. You know, how many of us have been lying awake at night thinking about something, knowing that you have to go to sleep, telling yourself to sleep? It's very difficult to manage the mind with the mind. And this is why the breath is such a powerful tool, because with the breath, we can clear the mind, focus the mind, without having to fight with the mind. And there's a little bit of science behind that I'm going to share with you. Let's see. I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to share with you what I know. We have in our system, we have our parasympathetic and our sympathetic nervous system. And what happens when we're in a state of stress is that our body is in fight or flight, and all of our blood is in our extremities, and it's really difficult. It's designed for our safety, but it's really difficult on our system. And the purpose of the parasympathetic system is really to restore and sustain us, particularly after stressful incidences. And as humans, we're designed to spend about 1 or 2% of our life in that sympathetic nervous system, because it's designed really for when you're walking down the street and you run into a bear. It doesn't happen very often. But what happens more and more in today's society is that we're being triggered into the sympathetic nervous system by really simple things. It can be traffic, and all of a sudden we're stressed. For students, if ever you've been that student that you've studied all night, you know everything, you get to your exam and all of a sudden you're blank, it's because your body has switched into the sympathetic nervous system. So I don't know about the Canadian statistics, but in the US, people are spending between 50 to 60% of their life in their sympathetic nervous system, in that fight or flight state. And this is why over 80% of doctor visits are related to stress. So this is normally in our day-to-day life, when we're in our parasympathetic nervous system, this is what's happening in our brain. Most of our processing is happening in our prefrontal cortex. When we're in the fight or flight, what's happening here is your amygdala says, oh no, we are in danger. It floods your prefrontal cortex with cortisol, and the neurotransmitters, the dendrites at the end of the neurotransmitters, aren't able to connect. And this is intentional because when you're walking down the street and you run into a bear, you don't need to do long division, right? You just need to figure out where to go and what to do. So it's intentional to make sure that we don't get caught up overthinking things and we can act and respond in a timely manner. But when our stress response is getting triggered continuously over things that aren't life or death, or that seem to be life or death, and our ability to think and intentionally respond is cut off, that becomes a little bit dangerous for us. So what happens when we do this breathing is that the cranial nerve number 10, the vagus nerve, which is connected to all of the organs in our parasympathetic nervous system, that helps to switch off the amygdala tell the amygdala that everything's okay, the cortisol recedes, our neurotransmitters connect, and what triggers this reaction is stimulating the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve can be stimulated in many ways. When we talked about energy and we talked about how working and volunteering and dancing and being with friends and taking a bath make us feel good, all of those actions stimulate your vagus nerve. And they have that same impact of switching off the fight or flight. But when you are walking down the street and you run into a bear, or you're in the middle of an exam, you don't have the option of saying, okay, I'm just going to go take a bath. I'll be back. All is well. No. The tool that we always have in our pocket is our breath. And when we do these breathing practices, it stimulates the vagus nerve and turns off the fight or flight response. The other benefit of these breathing practices is that done on a daily basis, they actually increase vagal tone. So vagus nerve is like a muscle and it can have vagal tone. So the stronger your vagal tone is, the higher your baseline is for your capacity to manage stressful situations. So can't think of an example, but my little brother used to know how to push my buttons. He could very easily push my buttons all the time. But what it takes for him to push my buttons now, after 9 years of these breathing practices, is very different than what it would have taken 9 years ago. He would have been able to get a reaction out of me in a minute 9 years ago. Now he's got to push me at least for probably a few weeks to get a strong response. And so having the breath as either a daily practice and an in-the-moment practice increases your capacity to manage stress overall and gives you tools to respond to stress in the moment. The last kind of sciencey piece I'll share with you is this. Actually, I'm going to go back one. One of the reasons it's so important to manage stress is, go back one. When we don't manage our stress, we tend to do things that we wouldn't normally do, right? I see some heads nodding. This is true. And what that does is it creates this downward spiral. Like, oh, I've done something wrong. And then we think, oh, I've done something wrong. I can't believe I did this. Oh, I'm such a bad person. And then we tend to isolate ourselves and because we don't want anything to do with something that we think is wrong. And we don't think anybody else does. So we tend to isolate ourselves and then we disconnect from people in our life. And when we get disconnected, we're more likely to continue doing things that we wouldn't normally do. Right? The more isolated we are, the more it leads to sadness and anxiety and depression. And when we are in those states and we act in ways that don't normally align with who we are, that circle of self-judgment and shame and blame continues, and we more and more isolate, and we're more and more likely to act outside of ourselves. When we stimulate the vagal tone, stimulate the vagus nerve, increase our vagal tone, it immediately starts to reverse that cycle because our ability to regulate our emotions and our actions increases almost instantly. Even if it's just the awareness of you're doing something, you're less likely to make mistakes. You're less likely to do things that you wouldn't normally do because you have that physiological support of awareness and ability to comprehend what's happening and respond in a different way. So just that simple act of stopping and taking a breath, which we've all heard, like if you're angry, stop and take 10 breaths. This is why it works, because it increases our ability to self-regulate our actions and our emotions. We're less likely to do things that we aren't proud of and less likely to go into that cycle. And the last sciencey thing I'll share with you for real is not all stress is bad. Sometimes stress motivates us, right? It helps us. Sometimes deadlines are the thing that get us to do what needs to get done. It's when we push past this optimum state of stress and keep pushing ourselves that we get exhausted, then we get anxiety, then we get depression, then we get burnout. And often the difference between optimum stress and too much stress, it's not that you need a 2-week vacation. It's actually just that you need a reset. And the reset can be as simple as a few minutes of breathing. So we're going to practice that, and we'll do another breathing practice. From that breathing practice, we'll go straight into a guided meditation. And the only thing that you need to know about guided meditation is that there's no way to do it wrong. Whatever you do is right. Whatever your experience is right. Some of us think that meditation requires a lot of concentration, or that if you have any thoughts at all, you're not doing it right. It's not true. The only thing that prevents us from meditating is our own judgment of our ability to meditate. So some days I've been meditating for years. Some days it's nonstop thinking, because that's where my mind is at. Some days, very rarely, it's hardly any thoughts at all. So whatever happens for you in the meditation is whatever you need. And just trust that whether you know how or not, you are actually meditating. Okay. So the next breathing practice we'll do, it's very common in yoga studios. It's called Ujjayi breath, which means victory. It's called victory because it gives you victory over your mind. It actually directly impacts the vagus nerve. You'll feel it when we do it. I'll demonstrate it for you first. Pay close attention to the sound, and then we'll do it together. Okay. So it's just a gentle constriction in the back of your throat. And it makes a soft sound like the ocean as you're breathing in and as you're breathing out. And the way that we'll do that is we'll get you all to say the word. We're going to whisper the word hola, because I did my training in Brazil. So we'll go. As you whisper, can you feel a little bit of a tickle at the back of your throat? So now we want to feel that same tickle as we say the word on the inhale and the exhale. Now we can drop the word, but we'll continue with the inhale and the exhale, making that sound. And when you're comfortable, you can close your mouth and continue making that sound on the inhale and the exhale. Now breathe in, out, in, out, in, out, Continue at your own pace. Go back to a normal breath. Just continuing to take nice, long, deep inhales and long, slow exhales. And we'll switch back to the victory breath. A gentle constriction at the back of your throat. Breathing in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And continue at your own pace for a few more breaths. We can return to normal breathing. And sit comfortably and easily. And if you're comfortable, you can either close your eyes or look down. And bring your awareness to the sounds around you. It might be a helicopter flying overhead. It might be people walking in the hallways. Just be aware of the sounds and let them be. And bring your awareness to your body. Feel the weight of your body on your chair. Our bodies are a beautiful gift given to us by nature. And bring your attention to your right foot. your right calf and knee, right thigh and hip, and your left foot, left calf, left knee, left thigh and hip. And bring your awareness to your genitals, your abdomen, stomach, chest, and shoulders. Bring your awareness to your back, your right arm, all the way down to the fingertips. Your left arm, all the way to the fingertips. Your neck, throat, back of your head, face, and the top of your head. And bring your awareness to your thoughts. You may have many thoughts. You may have no thoughts at all. And bring your awareness to your feelings. Happy feelings or sad. Like the clouds, let them come and go. You are peace and you are joy. And take a deep breath in. And slowly breathe out. And bring your awareness back to your feelings. And take a deep breath in. And breathe out. And bring your awareness back to your thoughts. And bring your awareness back to your body. Gently scan your body, just from top to bottom. And take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, bring your awareness back to the sounds around you. And slowly and gradually, with a smile, you can open your eyes. Welcome back. How are you feeling? Good.
Feeling so relaxed.
Beautiful.
I was about to even fall asleep.
Relaxed and a bit tired. Relaxed. Sometimes we feel tired when we rest because our body realizes how tired we are. Good. So I know some of you might have to run away. So we'll open for questions now. Before anyone jumps in, I want to share a program that we have. Some of you felt distracted, but overall more relaxed, and that's okay. Meditation is that's why we call it a meditation practice. The more we do it, the easier it is for our mind to settle. And even if you were to meditate twice a day, every day, you would still have days where your mind just doesn't settle. We're all impacted by our own internal environment and our external environment. And that doesn't mean the meditation isn't working. It just means that our experience of it is different. So it's okay if your mind wanders. Somewhere inside of you, you're getting rest. I wanted to share, we have a program called Living Well, specifically for medical professionals and people in healthcare. And when I say healthcare, I mean everybody in the building, recognizing that all of you, regardless of your role, are contributing in very important ways. And so for the Living Well program is traditionally 10 hours, and the community program is 7.5 hours. And the impact of it, the core part of it is sky breathing. And sky breathing is a 20-minute breathing practice that you can do every day. And what we've seen is when people do these practices, your sleep increases, both in terms of the quality and the quantity. We see increases in the well-being hormones. It's been tested against medications for depression and anxiety, and it's proven to be as effective. And consistently, we see that there's a decrease in stress. I teach these programs all over the US, and it's incredible what we see. So we have a special course specifically for healthcare workers, and it's a free and it's a hybrid course. It's designed to be flexible because I know you're all working all sorts of hours. You go online, you register yourself. It'll ask for a registration ID or a license number. Put whatever you want. It's because it's an American program, and we want it to be accessible to everybody and everybody in the building. So if you're not part of a profession that is licensed, you can just make up a number and put it in. It's basically 30 minutes of videos that will teach you different breathing practices or different techniques to manage the mind. And then you can schedule, then you'll need to do 2 live facilitated Zoom sessions. They're both 1 hour each, where you learn the sky breathing practice. And those can be scheduled at your convenience. They just need to be consecutive days. So that is there. And then if you want to do the live 7-hour course, you can find out more there. And then if you have feedback, there's a little survey there. So if you are interested in it, please keep the link. I can also put it in the chat. And then also, if you know any of your colleagues or coworkers who would benefit from it, please share. I think it's one of our only free offerings, and it's completely underutilized. So, and if you have any questions, I'm here.